Assalamu alaikum and welcome everyone to our session today. Thank you for joining us. We're pleased to be hosting another session with Jordan Campbell, who many of you might remember from previous talk with us. Our topic for today is understanding AuDHD in women, late diagnosis, identity, and everyday life. One of the reasons why we're so excited about this topic is because many women spend years feeling different, misunderstood, overwhelmed, or wondering why certain things seem harder for them than they do for other people. Jordan will be sharing her personal experiences, insights, and lessons from her own journey of self-discovery and healing. This isn't a clinical or diagnostic session, but rather an opportunity to hear from someone who has walked this path herself and hopes to help others feel a little less alone. We'll leave some time for questions towards the end, so feel free to pop any thoughts or questions into the chat as we go along. At the end of the session, you will be handed a small gift from Jordan. So I hope you can stay until the end and you would be receiving the little present that Jordan has prepared for you. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Jordan and we will begin the session for today. Thank you for joining, Jordan.
Hiya. So thank you so much for joining for the talk. My name's Jordan Campbell and I am the speaker today. And I'm also a radio presenter and I'm the author of My Mum Has ADHD. And I was diagnosed at 28 after several years of waiting on a diagnostic journey. And before I was diagnosed, I thought that everyone else had life figured out except for me. I didn't understand why I seemed to find normal things harder, motherly things harder than other people. And that all changed for me once I got diagnosed with autism and with ADHD. So that's a bit about me. And then today we're going to be looking at late diagnosis, masking, identity, daily life with ADHD. So I'm just having a bit of trouble changing the slide. There we go. Oh, almost. I don't know why it's not letting me have control on my side. Anyway, so I can start talking to you about masking. So masking can be defined as the act of concealing one's true identity, emotions, or natural behaviors to blend into societal norms, protect yourself from judgment, or to conform to specific situations. So before I knew what masking was, you feel it, so you might relate to that a little bit. I had said to my friend as young as primary six that I just can't be myself around you, around anyone. And she asked why, and truly I didn't have an answer. I couldn't explain it, or there wasn't words for it. I just knew that I changed parts of myself to suit who I was with. And I noticed that other children weren't. And then that started that feeling of I'm not normal. And years later, I found out it's called masking. So the toll of masking to me is copying others, rehearsing comprehensions, people pleasing, and it's exhausting after social interaction because it just takes so much effort to make yourself be, to almost perform. And I think this image does it beautifully because you're so calm on the outside and underneath is just chaos. So I have a personal opinion. As I said, I'm not a professional yet. So I feel that with women, masking is second nature. And I actually think it's ingrained into us before we even know what it is, even in the form of like be ladylike, be good. I think women are taught to be, and girls are taught to be agreeable and nice and emotionally accommodating to families, fathers, partners. And so from a really young age, I think we're indoctrinated into hiding our own feelings as a woman in general. So then tenfold when it comes to masking who you are because you've been raised to believe you should be a certain way. So I think that that's how so many autistic and ADHD women don't even know that they're masking. They just know they're exhausted and know they're never relaxed in social settings except around certain people. And then that's when you start to realize, oh, I don't mask in front of those people. Does that sound relatable to any of you? Okay. I'm trying to change slide. I'm not having any luck with that. Perfect. Thank you. Yes, relatable. So then you understand. That's so good to hear that because it is It is so difficult. Like, I especially have an ADHD and autism. I naturally crave conversation when I'm feeling it, and then when I'm around people, it flows. And then when I leave and I'll go home, I might as well have run a marathon. I only realised as I grew older. I'm 100% the same. I lived off fumes, and it keeps me in a cycle that I'm going to get to later in the slides, where I will forget that I'm asked and forget that I have these traits, perform to a high extent, high social expectations, and then I'll crash and burn and be like, oh yeah, remember, you crash, you're masking. And it takes a bit of getting used to, and I do think that diagnosis helps that. Okay, so what is AuDHD? AuDHD is autism and ADHD shortened, I think probably a lot thanks to social media. It's a bit easier to say. And I want to give you just some small information on ADHD and autism, because obviously there's a lot more than this. So ADHD would be, it affects your entire nervous system, and it's a neurological condition. And it is about regulating dopamine. You have less dopamine, less serotonin, and attention can be hard to regulate. You have more fluid attention, and you would seek novelty, dopamine activities, more high risk, and you're most comfortable in rapid shifting environments. You do not want to be bored when you have ADHD. That stagnation is horrible. And then information with autism would be it's more of it's a sensory spectrum disorder that likes predictability and can face a lot of social processing issues, not understanding tone, facial expressions. It's more likely that you'll crave order, routine, clear rules. It's more of a protective introverted, so that you'll need calm, and it requires sort of a systematic understanding of social dynamics and why. And where they intersect is in some of the symptoms, and there's a high probability, I think it's 60%, I'm not completely sure about that. If you have one as a female, you have a high chance of having the other. And the traits constantly mask each other and counteract one another. I find that ADHD and autism are not that complementary to have together. Before I move on, I'm just going to take a question. I think as we grow older, we stop accepting a lot that we did when we were younger, and it feels more obvious. 1000%. On a side note to that, I feel that COVID really amplified it for me. The pandemic, having years in the house, I think. Well, I can't speak for everyone. I dropped my mask that I didn't even really know I was carrying, to the extent of all day long, every social interaction in the spa, to test, like, to clients as a hairdresser. And then you dropped it for so long, I find then it was really hard to put back on after the pandemic. And I think I didn't after that. So before I was diagnosed with autism and ADHD, you might relate to this. I find it really polarizing internally, and I always felt like I had a split personality. In fact, when I was younger, I thought I had schizophrenia. Now, forgive me, because when I was younger, to me, schizophrenia was really crazy in a sort of way. So I was terrified to tell the doctors that I had two sides to me, one that was so hyper and happy and wanted to go talk to everyone, and one that was more introverted and please don't talk to me and I'm terrified of everyone. And I was genuinely scared that they would be like, you are crazy, you're getting locked up. And I didn't really explain to the extent of the duality of my mind until they mentioned to me years later, like a decade after I felt like that you have ADHD and autism. And it's two imposing disorders that overlap in symptoms, but they contrast in as well when they create a polarity within myself and my life. And it is displayed externally, like in habits and friendships and relationships, and internally. And I'm going to come back to that later in more detail. Maybe there's some of that will resonate with you. So diagnosis isn't a magic wand. This is actually personally one of my favorite slides in this, because I think when you're waiting for a diagnosis, it can seem like it's going to fix something, and you will have this light bulb moment after. But I'm sorry to tell you, that is not true. It doesn't fix you. It will explain you. I would say it's not a cure. It's like a book. So it's basically someone's handing you a book you can now open and learn about yourself and how to better manage yourself and your life. When I was younger, I used to ask the doctor if there was any pill I could take to be normal. I would break their arm for it. I desperately just wanted to be normal, whatever that is now. As I'm older, I understand there's not really a normal. But now, after diagnosis, I was able to learn that my normal is normal for me, and that thanks to social media, that my normal is not that odd in the scale of the world, which I find really comforting. It's just maybe odd in your class, in your university class. And I love that aspect of social media and the internet. And I think it can help understand ourselves. So the superhero expectation. I have this now, okay? So I am just you further down the line of self-discovery. And I so you don't sort of get out of some of the things even after diagnosis. So I feel like I can do everything in the world, and I will take on a lot of tasks, and I will build it up and try and do everything and try and be a superhero, and then I will crash. And I've just literally done this. I came back off 4 weeks of social media and not doing and currently doing the bare minimum because I was unable to reply to people. I didn't message Hannah back for a day or two. And as soon as I started to crash, I realized that I'm stuck in that superhero expectation and cycle again. So getting a diagnosis doesn't eradicate the symptoms. It can just make you aware of your patterns. It can give you the language that spirals, overdoing it, and burnout are still going to happen, but understanding your operating system allows you to spot it faster. So I realized about posting, and then I was posting because I'm an author and I needed to post on social media for the book, but somehow I got lost in that and then was studying the algorithm of TikTok and trying to post 5 times a day at specific times and trying to do it, and I snapped again and had to come off. So, and that's me years in going, oh, it happened again. So I think that understanding allows you to correct faster and pull back faster, but it won't change who you are, and nor should it. You just need to find a you that's more fulfilling for you and the best version of you that works for yourself. So I think that is the key. If there's anything that you take away from this, it is honestly accepting yourself. Um, as I said, I wanted a pill to like make me normal because I just didn't want to be me and I didn't want this cyclical take on the world and crash. And I thought I was going to be able to fix it. And then I had a psychologist when I was 22 say, let me paint you a scenario. And he said, okay, so you have a house with a fence and a dog and a normal job and a dog. And honestly, I really can't remember. And as he was talking, I daydreamed off because I was so bored. And he said, can I just stop you? And he was like, you don't want a normal life. Like you glazed over. What was the last word? Do you remember? And I said dog. And he said, I said so much more. He was like, you need to understand you're not, you think you want something and you don't. That's not actually what's going to make you happy. So I think when you accept yourself and from diagnosis, you can start looking at you and think, what makes me happy? What works for me? And that is the key to life, whether you're diagnosed or not. I think making life work for you and accepting yourself. Great question. I this is literally coming up. I think on the next slide. Do I still have self-doubt that maybe the diagnosis was wrong because you're not always your symptoms? 1000%. So I think there's a huge imposter syndrome with being diagnosed. And I was just talking about this before the meeting began, that I will still think that maybe they've got it wrong, or wait, that is, sorry, 1 second to answer this question. That is ahead. Where are we? There we are. Shame, guilt, imposter syndrome. I'm going to come back to this in closer detail because if I don't try and stay on slide, I will happily talk to you and stay off topic. But I do believe that, and I will come back to it about it. So I think after diagnosis, you can have a bit of shame, guilt, and as we're saying, imposter syndrome. There's a pre and post diagnostic journey that's a messy mix of shame, guilt, and sudden excitement all at once. And you can repeat. So pre-diagnosis, I felt like I knew I wasn't normal. I was a freak or a weirdo, and I was waiting the assessment, and I was terrified that they were going to say I was faking it. And I was just talking about this. That they were going to say, look, you don't have ADHD, you don't have autism, you're just normal and bad at it, right? That was absolutely terrifying, because you just don't know who you are, and it's very strange having someone else give you a bit of feedback about that. And then after diagnosis, there's a bit of instant relief of like, oh my goodness, it's true. You have some pain and heartbreak about what your life could have been, who you could have been, how hard you've been in yourself, and then you get rage and guilt all at once. And I think it just sort of can stay in that spiral of rage and paralysis, going, what do I do now? Is this the right diagnosis? Have they got it wrong? Am I making it up for attention? I genuinely had that thought. And somebody in my family said, do you do and feel the things that you do when you're not with people? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, well, you're not making it up. But the symptoms thing, they're not always there. I find this more with autism, particularly. I find myself ADHD, I can feel it. I can feel it in my heart rate. I can feel when I get distracted on a slide and I'm talking. I can see it in the chaos. But with autism, I find I don't notice it as much until I'm socially interacting or overstimulated. So sometimes I will still think like, I wonder, did they get that wrong? Like, am I actually autistic? And then I'll have like all of these other traits of overstimulation or sensory things, clothes and light. And I'm like, oh, maybe they got it right. I also think that sometimes the spectrum can be too big, which I was talking about, especially autism, because there's too much in it that like you can't align with everything. I'm with ADHD. I would align majority with a lot of ADHD stuff, but not all. But I believe if something, I saw this quote once, if something brings, if your life is disordered because of the traits of you, then it's a disorder. You know, so if it's not like, if things last like a week or something or 2 weeks, then I wouldn't be rushing to get myself diagnosed with anything. But if this is a lifetime of symptoms or traits that come and go or flare up in different situations, then that's caused disorder in your life. Yes, when you're overwhelmed, it feels like all the symptoms are there, but regulator camera, everything's okay. I feel this way. That is my perfect description of why I have an imposter syndrome, particularly with autism, because it doesn't display for me as much. If you take me to a grocery store, that is my idea of living hell. I cannot explain it. Lights, noise, fear of social interaction, the hum of everything. I can hear all the fridges, and I feel autistic. Okay, for lack of a better term. But like if I'm in my house and I'm just living life, I'm like, I'm totally fine, you know? Or but when like my child is speaking or the dog is going, and it's, for me, the biggest trait of it would be social awkwardness, not understanding cues, and stimulation. And if I don't have those symptoms, I will completely agree with you that I'm like, when I'm calm, there's no problem. That is what I will do with ADHD as well. I'll be like, I'm just really motivated. Like that's, I've got a cold sore at the minute that you might not be able to see. I was telling Hannah about, this is my superhero syndrome on my face. And I will think that I'm just studying. I'm just taking on a bit of work, and I will think I'm totally fine. And then I'll look up and I have been studying for 6-7 hours for weeks over some topic that I've decided I needed to do, and I've burnt myself out, and I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I do. So I diagnosis, that's why I say it's the book and it's not a cure, because I don't think there is a cure. I think there is management and self-love and self-acceptance. So yeah, I still have imposter syndrome to some degree, and sometimes I think I'm faking it or I'm making it up, or my own needs aren't like other autistic people's needs. Like their needs are more than me because they're really autistic. I still have that. And then someone else, like my sister, is a carer and works as a support system with people that assisted living with autistic people, and she will remind me that my needs are similar to theirs, but I will still think that they need it more than me. Okay. I'm loving all the questions, by the way, and I'm loving it. I mean, I love that it relates, because truly, I think that is the most important thing. You can think you're going crazy or making it up, or the symptoms aren't that bad, or it's just you, or any of those isolating, cut off thoughts. And then for me, hearing anyone else on TikTok was beautiful for that, for me, of being like, oh, like if they get it and I get it, then that's also, there's something to be said about that. When 1,000 people with ADHD or agree on one thing, then I'm like, oh, maybe it is ADHD. Whereas I don't have the confidence in myself sometimes to think maybe that's a trait. I'll just sometimes still blame myself. So I spoke earlier on a bit of duality, and it's basically about autism and ADHD, and I find it's like two different operating systems within the one soul arguing, and I think some of this might resonate with a lot of you. I find ADHD is very expansive. and a larger than life side of myself. So I'm craving excitement, novel plans, like let's just do this, let's go here. And I want dynamic social interaction. And I would suffer if I was understimulated. So if I'm bored, that's the worst thing for me. And then autistic is more protective. Um, so I'll slip into I want to cancel the plans that the other side of me made because it's overstimulating and I've burnt out a bit. So the autistic side of me needs to withdraw, calm down, recover, and it's painful when you're autistic and you have overstimulation. And I find that can feel like two completely different souls with completely different needs occupying the same body. And I find it really, really difficult. To touch on that, I find as a woman as well, I would find that I notice cyclically the issues of having ADHD and autism. So I find that there's a cyclical pattern. So ovulation time, follicular time, I have extra hormones. So you've got a bit extra dopamine, which you need for ADHD because you're in deficit. I am therefore elevated. There's more serotonin. I want to make plans. I'm a social butterfly. And I book all of the exercise classes and I make all of these plans throughout the month. And then, like an unwanted relative at Christmas dinner, the little face shows up and your hormones drop back down. Everything drops back down. And I will find that I will have to deal with the plans. My autistic side will have to deal with the plans that ovulation and ADHD side made. That, especially with PMDD, there's a crash, and I will lean into more of the autistic side of protective, not wanting to go out, wanting to cancel the same plans I made, paralyzed by the overcommitment and overstimulation that the other side of me needs. And I'll want to retreat and recharge. And this cycle with diagnosis, it still continues. It's I find that I live in a role. I find pre-diagnosis, I fully believe I haven't got this on the slide, but I just think it's relative when you're someone's enjoying the cycle syncing. They diagnosed me with manic depression from when I was 12 or something crazy, until I think they diagnosed with BPD later on, and that's been changed. But anyway, I don't think it was. I think it was completely wrong diagnosis. And now looking back, they used to give me antidepressants. I used to take them for 2 weeks, which is roughly, back then we didn't know. We weren't even educated on that fact at our age at school that we had different stages like this. I would have needed antidepressants for my luteal phase and for menstruation. And then the moment my period ended, I'm back to me. And like, yeah, life's great again. And this just stayed for me from 12 until like my late 20s, being diagnosed with autism and ADHD and finding out about the women's cycle more on social media and about ADHD and hormones. So if you have ADHD, you have a dopamine deficit naturally. So your dopamine is like way down here. So when your luteal phase comes, every woman has a dopamine drop. So for someone with ADHD, it is double the deficit of drop. So to me, it causes naturally a cyclical ADHD and autistic swing. I will want to retreat, want my hobbies, want my comfort foods, want my comfort clothes, want nature, want slow, and then there we go again. And the cycle will continue with me. That's why I think, again, as a woman, it's unfortunate. There's nothing we can do about it. They're like, to know that and to know that you can work with your body and your hormones and your mental health just gives you so much more grace to understand yourself, so much more ability to manage your life. Okay, so speaking of working within your operating systems, then that's going to take me to the next slide. Okay, so this is one of my, I did not claim this idea, though I cannot find who originally, I don't know what you call it, theorized it. Emotional accounting is what has changed my life, and it's working within your operating system. So like you balance your bank account, so you've got your mortgage coming out, your car payments, blah, blah, blah. You work and you put money in. You need to do that for your life, for your brain, because it'll understanding your patterns, resting before burnout, all of these things will help regulate yourself. So what are you putting into yourself versus what are you taking out? So say, as it's mostly going to be women in here, so motherhood, housework, social requirements, running your whole life, and then you're like, I'm just going to have a bath a week and a 10-minute face mask. and it's think that's balanced, and it's not, and that will lead to burnout. So you should be depositing whatever it is that is for you. So say you've had a busy week with your kid or with work, and it's all been social battery, could be work, could be kids, and you're completely empty. You're going to crash and your symptoms are going to get worse. So to try and stop that, whether it's a bath, a walk in nature, a program, you need to schedule deposits that are going to raise your soul, raise your inside, whatever it is for you, so that, so something's always pouring out. Like that phrase, you can't pour from an empty cup. Take it literally. Like fill your own cup, like so that you can pour out. I just think that energy accounting and emotional accounting really, really worked well for me. If I have 8 hours demand of social battery requirement, then I need 4 hours for me maybe to have no one needs me time. Tip, by the way, no one needs me time is what I highly recommend for any neurodivergent. People say alone time, but it's not alone. It is, could be all, any demand from you needs to be gone. You need, no one needs you time so that your nervous system can sit and regulate, and then you can be ready to pour out again. Okay, well, if you haven't heard of it, then it might be a beautiful thing that you can take away from today. Just it could be, yeah, you can pour from an empty cup. And I didn't, I would have tried to like 100% pour from an empty cup and would have felt guilt at rest. I have a bit of an output addiction. I feel like I always have to do and have to be, but then that keeps you in the cycle. And this is where Diagnosis is that book, and it can help you now that you know need timeouts. I 1000% need timeouts. I live close to nature, or I live in nature basically, and I could go for a walk, and I make a joke that I'm a bit like a golden retriever. I could walk for 5 to 10 minutes or 30 minutes 4 times a day, because I'm mostly a solo parent. My partner works away, so I have a 6-year-old, and I will be doing everything, and then I'm like, no, like I need 2 minutes, I need 5 minutes, and then regulate and come back. um Emotional accounting also can be medication, therapy, the gym, time with friends. It doesn't have to be that social is just draining as well. Some, like my time with my sister, is going to charge me up. There's no mask there. Time with a hairdressing client is great, and it'll be hyper, but I will crash very, very hard after that, and knowing the balance. And emotional accounting for me includes medication. That is not me saying everyone needs it, but staying medicated and the gym and nature and friends, those are things that I use to pour back into me, because life is draining and you have to fill it back up. Okay, so I just sort of want you to take away that you're not broken at all. You're just misunderstood, including, and I would even say mostly by yourself. I'm going to get back to your question just in a little second. I want your goal to not be to be normal, but understand yourself enough to build a life that fits. And remember, I'm not a professional. I am going to take on a master's in psychology to sort of become one, but it's not going to matter really. Everything is more important by someone that's lived it and knows that you can do it. I just want to be a friend to others like me, and want to help out speaking about things. And I want you to know that you're enough the way that you are, and it will just take time, just like learning to walk, learning a new language. Whenever you learn a new language, not that I've ever managed to complete it, you're learning little simple words, and then the more words you know, you become a sentence, and then you can understand a paragraph, and then you can understand so much. A bit like that with this. And then yes, I have created a handout, okay, that is all of the tools and tricks I have used over the past several years to help me with my mental health. I just want to make it clear, I am not a professional. This is not medical advice, but it truly is my entire life on an attachment that when I said I had to retreat there for 4 weeks, I went back, and that's how the list became. I started to think, what can I give these people that they could take away from, that you could use yourself, and there's suggestions of TV, books, audios, things to do that you can look at to help find your normal and help you to be the best version of yourself. Some of it will resonate you, some of it won't. But as I said, it's not professional advice. It's just a collection of what I have done on repeat since my diagnosis to help me become the version that I am now, sitting in this chair, being able to talk to other women like me. So I hope that you like it, and I'll get Hannah to add that. And then I am happy to take any questions, and I'll start with the one that is in front of me here.
Thank you. Thank you, Jordan, for giving such a lovely talk and for touching up on so many important points through the talk. I feel like it really did resonate with a lot of people who've joined in with us today. And yes, we will be moving on to the Q&A session now. And I'll ask you the questions and you can have them answered.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The question I see here, do you struggle with saying no, especially understanding that you are being asked something and have the choice to say no?
I'm horrendous at saying no. I am awful. If I say no, I feel like I deserve a treat. This is why I want to speak to you as a peer and not a professional, because yes, if someone asks me to do something, it is ingrained into me to be a bit of a people pleaser, and I want people to like me and I want to help people, and I really struggle to say no. In text message, this is part of the reason I don't answer the phone, by the way, which is I don't know a healthy strategy or not. If I see someone phone me, I don't answer it because I know whatever they say. If they're like, "Can you move to thingy right now?" I would be like, "Yeah, of course I can." And I don't know why. And so I try and get my requests in text message so that I can process it. But I have told my mum for the past 3 years that I'm not looking after her dogs in July. And I'm looking after her dogs this July. So she is putting them into kennels 1 week this time instead of 3. But of course, I have said yes.
Of course, you did say. It's just hard. Okay, thank you for sharing that, Jordan. What is one misconception about AuDHD that you wish more people understood?
Oh, there's probably so many. Um, I might sound simple to someone that doesn't understand, but I don't think it'll sound simple to you. I wish people understood how hard it is to be that, to have it. I don't know if you be it or we have it or what it is. I don't think people understand how hard it is to be conceptually aware of what you're doing. So interrupting people, talking, overcommitting, people pleasing, or snapping at people from overstimulation, right? And conceptually, mentally understanding that it's rude or you shouldn't do it, but not being able to. Being able to understand but not control yourself, some of your actions, how you appear, how you sound. I find that I don't think people realize how hard it is. It just that it's not a choice, that we're not choosing to be difficult, we're not choosing to be too emotional or too withdrawn after burnout. We're not choosing any of it. At best, on my best day, I am managing it and I'm trying my hardest. And I don't think others understand just how much effort it takes to try and do that, to try and be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. Like you have to be a person. You have to be in the person's shoes to truly understand how they're feeling or what they're going through. Okay, I see another question here. How can someone tell the difference between being introverted and masking?
That's a really, really great question. Now, some of these I'm speaking from personal experience. That's a brilliant question. How do I tell? So for me personally, as I've said, I find I have become more autistic, by the way, or had more issues since I've been medicated for ADHD. I can go into that if you like. But when I was younger, that's the only way I can try and explain it. I wouldn't have felt introverted at all. Okay, so I would have been felt quite extroverted. It's when I think that you are trying to control a situation, and I don't mean that to sound toxic or manipulative in any way. I think that if you're aware of the person in front of you and you're in your mind and you're like, okay, focus on what they're saying. Did you agree with them? Is that the right answer? If you're policing your own thoughts, mannerisms, and traits, I would tend to lead that towards masking. And again, that's not a professional opinion; it's just mine. Because yes, introverted, you can just not want to like you can just be a bit more withdrawn, and I think that's fine. I think my partner's introverted. Okay, there's I'm trying to explain it. I need to use images. So he crashes from social time, but when he is in a social setting, he's the same person he is when he's crashing. He's just a more tired version of that after social. Whereas I like I'm a shell of myself after hours of masking, and I will like my whole body is switched on, and I'm thinking about every thought, and I'm doing that, and then I crash after and can get quite emotional. Whereas he is more introverted. He does not feel autistic, and he is not diagnosed. He is neurotypical, as he believes, and as I would say. And yeah, he is introverted, so he will just have some time and then need quiet time, but it's not crash time. Does that help?
Great. Yeah, totally. I think that example really does help because it shows the difference between what masking does to you and how introverted personality can come out, and how that could play out after social settings. So that really does help. Thank you. Um, and I hope that answers the question as well for those who've asked, for the one who's asked it over here. I see the next question. Is it important to get diagnosed officially? Is it enough if you identify as ADHD but don't have a diagnosis done with professionals?
I think this is a great question. I've talked about this when I have given talks in libraries. I do not think that a diagnosis is the most important thing at all. I was in an extremely abusive situation. It was life-threatening multiple times, and I would say if I did not have that, if I did not have the abuse that pushed my symptoms to my own then life-threatening levels of mental instability and depression and suicidal things, I don't think I ever would have got diagnosed. It's part of the reason the split personality. I only went to mental health when I was depressed, and I wanted them to fix that. I never wanted them to fix the hyperactive that wants to take over the whole world and be president of America, like, or whatever I want to be that day. I never wanted to fix that. I loved that. I just, because of the situation of my life, I was a danger to myself after abuse that wasn't my fault. And because I became a danger to myself and then I was a mum, I needed medication to help settle me down, or I don't know, to help me out of that situation. And then because that is the only reason. I think unless you need medication, which you will know and make that own decision within yourself, I do not think a diagnosis is really that important, because I think you understand yourself. I don't think it matters that much. The only reason I got one is because I needed medication to save my life, and if I didn't have medication, I wouldn't be here. But away from abuse and now settled, like I've spoke about this, I've spoke to other people. If you're not a threat to your own life, which I was, then no, I don't think you need medication. I don't think you need this. I think the way to manage it is by self-acceptance, tools. I think that's the key to life, is finding a life that works for you and understanding yourself and giving yourself grace. I don't think some words on a page do anything. Particularly, I just needed it because I personally needed medication.
Thank you. Thank you for being so raw and honest about it and sharing your personal experience on that. That does make sense, and I think I agree with you on that as well. I see another question here. Do you think that anxiety plays a part of ADHD? People tell us to look back to our childhood for symptoms, but I can't remember much other than anxiety that has continued throughout the years. I have a lot of other symptoms, but I feel that I could be overanalyzing.
Okay, so do I think anxiety? Yes, I do think anxiety plays a part in it. So I think people are overdiagnosed now. Forgive me when I say that, bear with me. I don't mean overdiagnosed in specific conditions. I think they throw a million labels at I think they throw a million labels at people. So before I was diagnosed with autism and ADHD, they had me diagnosed with anxiety, manic depression, BPD, borderline personality disorder, emotionally unstable personality disorder, and something else, right? It was literally they threw every letter at me at the alphabet. And really, if you look into autism and if you look into ADHD, anxiety falls within that. So I think it is part of it and not a separate thing. The anxiety I feel on a daily basis is crazy. A question that maybe will help with you is something they asked me when they were diagnosing me, and they asked me, "Are you ever calm?" And I was speechless for probably the first time in my life. I had nothing to say. And they said it's very common with people with ADHD and autism, and that it's not just that it's anxiety, it's actually stress. And that he said, "Are you ever calm?" And then I realized that no, I'm not. And before I even had a chance to speak, I couldn't speak. He said, with people with autism and ADHD, it's quite common that you're always stressed, and it's always either a state of good stress or bad stress. So for me, that equates to having anxiety. And my anxiety's got worse throughout the years. Let me see. I just need to go back up to remind myself the question because I talk to you so much that I forget. You have a lot of other symptoms. I feel it could be over analyzing. I spent my entire life over analyzing, and I think it's okay to look at yourself. I also think that you can feel anxious as part of something. So I got them to take a lot of diagnoses off me after I had ADHD and autism diagnosed because being anxious or having anxiety is part of ADHD and autism. So I didn't feel I needed a separate diagnosis from that. I feel that's the problem, to give people a list of things rather than saying you could have traits of an anxiety disorder within this bracket. I would have quite a lot of obsessive compulsive traits. I don't have OCD, but I have obsessive compulsive traits and tendencies that also fall under the bracket.
Thank you for being so real with that. And I noticed how, you kind of were going off track and you got yourself back on track again.
Yes.
That was cute. Okay, I see another question here. How do we figure if we might be ADHD or it could be trauma, since some things seem to overlap? Some symptoms, I believe.
Okay.
It's a
I
difficult
just
one.
it is a difficult one, but I just also, if I overtalk, please stop me because I do have the ADHD is real and I will just keep speaking. How do we might be ADHD or if could trauma? Okay, so this is why I found I can only talk about from personal experience. I would never have guessed I have autism. Like never in a million years. Like absolutely not. What is it like until I was an adult and I learned more about it. Um, I knew the ADHD, if you look back, is far more displayed, and I would have had quite a lot of trauma. There's quite a lot of abuse in my history, and I believe it made me worse. This is something that is up for debate in the medical world of whether that there is trauma-induced autism. This is something that I've spoke to my mentor about. It's not something I post about online because I'm not a professional, so I've just have it in discussion. I would personally agree with it with me. When I look back at myself under 16, there's a RADS test, RADS, and it asks the questions beautifully of over 16 and under 16. And under 16, I don't really answer many questions in what I would say would be an overly autistic manner. But after 16, and I had a lot of trauma from 12, 13, 14 going through into my adult life. So I think that trauma did cause some of my symptoms, and I don't genuinely know if I've always been autistic or trauma caused it. It is not something that is accepted fully in the medical world. My mental health mentor agrees with it. He was like, "Have you heard of this?" I said no. And when I was talking to him about my school experiences and about abuse, and he was asking me about my social interactions and capabilities after all of these events and how it kept changing, I feel like I got more autistic. I feel like trauma has had a huge impact. So I don't know if it's trauma or trauma caused for me. But I do think it's very, very, very linked because it links how you shape the world, your brain chemicals, all of those things.
I can see that. And that is an interesting kind of view as well. Like, it is linked rather than two separate things.
Oh
Like
yeah,
you could be just ADHD, or you could, your symptoms could be something trauma related as well. But the link between the two is something that is interesting, and how you've mentioned that you've noticed it in yourself as well. So that,
100%.
yeah.
I was a social butterfly, like I really, really was. And I had anxiety about speaking to people, but like not the way I am now. Like I'm a different human being. Now in adulthood, I don't know how I worked in a bar and spoke to thousands of people per night. I have no idea. The idea now of me doing that would terrify me. So but I have CPTSD. So that would this is where I understand that like trauma and it's all far more linked than people understand. So CPTSD symptoms can look like anxiety and look like autism and ADHD, and it's only from professional help that I then know that it is trauma and these two things. But I think again, this is what the difficulty is. I think conceptualizing that, yes, I understand the words that are coming out of my mouth, and I'm sure you do as well. But inside, I can't tell the difference if I'm crying because I'm autistic, ADHD, or CPTSD, and because someone rang the buzzer really, really loud and it's overstimulating to me. I don't know what the difference are. I just know the resulting symptoms and that there's a correlation.
Yeah, like you just know that this is you. This is, how
Yeah,
you're living, and that's life for you. So yeah, completely get that. Yes, I agree with you. Like, only with professional help can you really realize what problems you're having or the help that you could get. So that is something, quite interesting as well. Thank you for
Mhm.
sharing all of that, Jordan. And I believe those are all questions. We do have a comment here where I hope we can overcome autism and ADHD. I personally feel extremely stressed due to my procrastination and lack of focus. It really affects my daily routine. So I think that's just a comment. But do you have anything, any tips or anything to share?
Um, Absolutely. Again, I don't think that you'll ever be able to overcome it. Fair play if you can. I don't think for me it's more about managing it. My procrastination is a vein in my life and lack of focus. So I think you just have to learn some discipline, which sounds more simple than it is. But I now know that I'm like, okay, you are procrastinating, and I am an adult. I'm 33 years old. I have a choice that I can try and do the dishes anyway, even though I'm procrastinating. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And also for procrastinating, this is a coping mechanism. This is not professional advice. I set timers because pressure really helps, as commonly known with ADHD. So if I use the air fryer, or it could be an alarm on my phone, my kid hates it. I will say, right, we have an hour to do this. And I'm like, that invisible pressure will help snap me into focus. That's why I used to do assignments the night before the deadline. And it took me 6 years in university to stop doing that. I didn't do that, like to stop using pressure to focus. So with procrastination, I find pressure helps me. So I will say, invite someone around, or say, I have to do this before the air fryer goes off, or I'll set myself pressure to help my procrastination, and discipline to just do it anyway.
Yeah, that helps. That does help. And I believe like body doubling or something like that as well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, definitely does help. Thank you so much, Jordan. Thank you for taking the time out to speak about AuDHD and for helping
Mm-hmm.
us understand it better, for
Mm-hmm.
answering all the questions, and for, you know, giving everything that you have to us and, to helping people out. Thank you so much for joining. Um, I believe that's everything for today. I don't see any more questions. And we
How,
will, yeah.
sorry, how do I add the wee attachment? I can't seem to do it on my end.
Oh, I'm going to send the attachment soon now. So
Oh,
we
okay,
do have,
perfect.
yeah, we do have a lovely little present from Jordan. I'm going to send it here in the chat box, and we're also going to be sending it on our events group. So, Sister Isla, if you could share the link to our events group, and we would be pinning it over there for the others to download it or to find it. I'm just going to send it now in the chat box. Hope you all have a lovely rest of the day, and that would
Thank you so
be
much
for
for
today.
everyone, and for wait for you, and thank you, Hannah, for giving me the space to have this conversation. I'm so grateful that we're all talking about it, and I'm so grateful for everyone that came today. And I hope that I've left you with some information or stories that help.